Chapter 4. Or, do you want to come home with me? The beta manager hurried over, a thin layer of sweat on his forehead. He had just been offering drinks in a familiar VIP private room, so he was a little late. The pheromone scent in the corridor was already so intense that even a beta like him, who was not particularly sensitive to pheromones, felt his legs going weak. No wonder the Omega hosts in the lounge he had just passed were all noticeably restless. Releasing oppressive pheromones in public was generally considered unethical. However, as an S-level, Alpha, Sheng Shaoyou had the ability to control the targets of his pheromonal pressure. Aside from being overwhelmed by the sheer dominance of his scent, others didn't experience much discomfort. Seeing that someone in charge had arrived, Sheng Shaoyou suddenly withdrew his oppressive pheromones. The Alpha, who had been contorted in agony, gasped for air as if he had been saved, his face streaked with tears and mucus. He struggled to stand upright, still trembling with fear, and began to bitterly complain to the beta manager about all that he had endured. The A-level Alpha had indeed been humiliated terribly. But Sheng Shaoyou was not only a super VIP but also a distinguished guest of the boss. The beta manager couldn't afford to offend him, so he could only offer an explanation to the Alpha, whose face was twisted in pain. "I'm sorry, this is all misunderstanding." Misunderstanding? The Alpha finally caught his breath after coughing for a while. He didn't dare to target Sheng Shaoyou directly, nor did he dare to even look at him. Turning his face away, he grimaced and barked, "Your hosts here sure are precious. If they can't handle this kind of thing, why even bother working here?" Such a fucking buzzkill. Sheng Shaoyou's generosity was well known among the management at Tiandihui. Even if Sheng Shaoyou had intentionally caused trouble this time, the beta manager wouldn't dare raise his voice to such a big spender. He quickly decided to shift the subject, feigning surprise as he asked, "Host?" "Which host?" "Him." The Alpha furiously pointed his finger. The beta manager followed his gaze and saw Hua Yong hiding behind Sheng Shaoyou. He thought to himself, why is it him? When the beta manager started his shift that evening, he immediately noticed this unfamiliar yet stunning face. Fair and delicate skin, a sharp, slender chin, exquisite features, the crisp, captivating full scent of his pheromones. Paired with a flawless bone structure, and even for someone like the beta manager, who spent his days immersed in a sea of beauties and was notoriously discerning and critical, had picky eyes, the first sight of this Omega left him momentarily dazzled. This little beauty even had a particularly unique name, Hua. Hua something. Oh, right. Hua Yong. Fuck. The Alpha guest cursed again when he saw the beta manager staring blankly at Hua Yong. "What are you spacing out for? Hurry up and tell me how you're going to settle this." The beta manager couldn't do anything about Sheng Shaoyou, but holding a part-time server on his first day accountable was a piece of cake for him. With a stern expression, he turned to Hua Yong and asked, what exactly happened? Hua Yong stood very close to Sheng Shaoyou, his face still faintly flushed from the effects of the earlier burst of pheromones. His fair cheeks carried a tinge of innocent yet sensual rosiness, mixed with traces of lingering panic. Gripping the corner of Sheng Shaoyou's jacket, Hua Yong recounted the events truthfully. In a soft voice, he emphasized, "I kept explaining to the guest that I was only responsible for promoting drinks. But he wouldn't listen. Thankfully, Mr. Sheng stepped in to help me." The beta manager stared at him, utterly speechless. If Sheng Shaoyou weren't present, the beta manager's eye roll would have been dramatic enough to reach the ceiling. Although the recruitment ad indeed listed drink sales, as an Omega choosing to work in an entertainment venue, shouldn't he have understood the implications? Accompanying guests for eating, drinking, entertainment, or even engaging in more intimate physical interactions, weren't these all naturally part of the expected services? Otherwise, how could they possibly justify offering such a high salary? What on earth were the HR people doing? How could they fail to explain this? Did they just see a pretty face and couldn't wait to hire him? They were dumping this mess onto frontline management like him. Being painted as some kind of tyrant forcing himself on an innocent beauty, the Alpha guest was completely indignant. Now that he was slowly recovering from the pheromone suppression Sheng Shaoyou had inflicted, the embarrassment and humiliation of the night burned even brighter in his mind. With nowhere to vent his rage, he pointed at the beta manager and roared, "Look at the people under your charge. Is this how Tiandihui treats its guests?" Damn it, this is worse than some sleazy roadside KTV. I've been out playing for so long, and this is the first time I've run into such a bizarre situation. We sincerely apologize. Your expenses for tonight will be fully covered by us. After soothing the severely offended and humiliated alpha guest, the beta manager turned to Sheng Shaoyou, who had been dragged into this mess, and apologized profusely. The beta manager then turned to the A-level alpha with a fawning smile and introduced, "This is young Master Sheng from Shengfang Biotech. You've surely heard of Shengfang Biotech. It's the leading enterprise here in Jianghu, a major taxpayer through and through." Deliberately trying to placate the disgraced alpha, the beta manager continued with a flattering smile, "Distinguished guests like you and President Sheng are both prominent figures in Jianghu. There's no need to hold a grudge over such a minor issue. Let's let it go. In a few months, when tonight's incident comes up, you and President Sheng will surely laugh it off as a case of serendipity, friends who met through a misunderstanding." Although the alpha guest himself was also a young scion, compared to Sheng Shaoyou, who stood at the heart of Jianghu's second-generation elite, his family's assets were barely enough to keep him comfortable, not even worth mentioning. Noticing the alpha guest's expression softening, the beta manager, ever the shrewd negotiator, immediately seized the opportunity and sweetened the deal. "Of course, I understand you suffered quite a grievance tonight. As compensation, in addition to waiving all charges for your private room and your friends, I'll also give you a 20,000 cash credit voucher for your next visit to Tiandihui. Really, I must apologize for tonight's mishap." The alpha guest had heard of Sheng Shaoyou's reputation long ago but never had the chance to meet him. He could tell the beta manager was skillfully smoothing things over, so he wisely decided to play along. It's fine," he said, forcing a smile as he extended his hand to Sheng Shaoyou, attempting to make peace. "Let's call it a misunderstanding this time, brother. My bad, I drank too much." Sheng Shaoyou still kept his hands in his pockets, showing no intention of shaking hands or reconciling. He stared at the alpha guest with an icy, expressionless face. The beta manager felt his head start to throb and tried his best to maintain a smile. "President Sheng, please, do me a favor. Don't make this any harder. You're so magnanimous, let's not drag this out." Sheng Shaoyou interrupted coldly. "Is saying sorry to an Omega that difficult for you? Just how superior do you think you are?" The alpha, who had already lowered his pride once, felt his face fall again after being brushed off. His forced smile could no longer hold. The beta manager, ever the skilled diplomat and people-pleaser, quickly realized that Sheng Shaoyou was entirely impervious to both persuasion and appeasement. At the same time, he keenly noticed Sheng Shaoyou's clear preference for Hua Yong. The one who tied the knot should be the one to untie it. The beta manager, adept at bullying the weak while fearing the strong, began frantically signaling at Hua Yong, who was standing aside, with his eyes. Hua Yong didn't want to interject at this moment, but the manager's relentless glaring left him no choice. Finally, he tugged at Sheng Shaoyou's sleeve and said softly, "Mr. Sheng, let it go." His tone carried an unmistakable sense of reluctant compromise. Sheng Shaoyou frowned and asked him, "Are you sure?" "He's definitely sure. After all, it's all just a misunderstanding." The beta manager quickly jumped in, sensing Sheng Shaoyou's stance might be softening. Sheng Shaoyou had already had quite a bit to drink that evening, and just downed a glass of strong vodka. Though he wasn't drunk, he was slightly tipsy. The manager's excessive chatter was grating on his nerves. Tilting his head lazily, he said, "Did I ask you?" "The person I'm asking is him." The beta manager was stunned by the rebuke, momentarily at a loss for words, and inwardly growing more resentful toward Hua Yong. "Well, Hua Yong, you tell me yourself." Hua Yong kept his head lowered, the shadow of his lashes falling softly beneath his eyes, making him look even more vulnerable. In a gentle voice, he replied, "I'm sure. Let it go." Only then did the farce come to an end. After sending off the two VIPs, the beta manager immediately began to settle accounts. With a stern expression, he glared at Hua Yong. "You, come to my office for a moment." Hua Yong responded with a soft but his gaze remained glued to Sheng Shaoyou's retreating figure. After hesitating for a moment, he tentatively asked the manager, "Can you wait for me a bit? I want to say goodbye to Mr. Sheng." "I'll come right after," the beta manager had seen plenty of Omegas like Hua Yong, eager to climb higher branches. However, recalling Sheng Shaoyou's earlier protective attitude, he decided not to refuse. Raising his eyebrows slightly, he said, "Go ahead, but be quick, Mr. Sheng." At the entrance of Tian Di Hui, Sheng Shaoyou lowered his gaze to the hand tugging at his sleeve once more. Hua Yong had likely chased after him the entire way. His lips were slightly parted as he panted softly, his exposed abdomen rising and falling with his breaths. Beneath his loosely fastened uniform, a sliver of skin as white as snow was revealed. "Could you give me a way to contact you?" The thought of his waist always being held by other alphas stirred an inexplicable sense of displeasure in Sheng Shaoyou. His expression remained cold as he curtly declined, "No." Hua Yong's face stiffened awkwardly, but he still tried to explain, but Sheng Shaoyou interrupted him unceremoniously. "If you just want to thank me, then there's no need." Hua Yong opened his mouth as if to say more. Sheng Shaoyou's gaze lingered on that face, perfectly tailored to his preferences, before he suddenly curved his lips into a faint smirk. With a teasing tone, he said, "Or, do you want to come home with me?" After all, there wasn't an Omega in this world who didn't admire an S-level alpha. Especially not one who was handsome, wealthy, and had just recently rescued him from a dangerous situation. Besides, Hua Yong seemed desperate for money. As someone in Shen Wenlang's circle, he must have seen his fair share of the world. Claiming he wasn't selling himself might simply mean the price hadn't been high enough yet. Hua Yong froze, unable to immediately grasp what Sheng Shaoyou meant by "come home with me." When the realization hit, his cheeks, already flushed red from absorbing too much of the S-level alpha's pheromones, turned an even deeper shade. "I didn't." Before he could finish, Sheng Shaoyou, having been turned down yet again, didn't give him the chance to continue. His smile faded, though the curve of his lips remained, now tinged with derision. He sneered, "There's no need for such grand gestures. I'm not like Shen Wenlang. I'm not interested in things that throw themselves at me." The beta manager, watching from a distance, couldn't help but let out a scornful chuckle. He had seen far too many scenes like this. Hua Yong did indeed have a stunningly beautiful face, but relying on a bit of charm and a dash of favor to try and climb up to someone like Sheng Shaoyou. For a mere waiter, it was nothing short of inviting humiliation upon himself. Now that Sheng Shaoyou had left, Hua Yong's fleeting advantage disappeared along with him. The beta manager, losing patience, barked at him, "Are you done yet? I've got a ton of things to deal with." Hurry it up. Hua Yong turned his head, his gaze cool as he glanced at the manager. For no apparent reason, the beta manager shivered. He found it eerie but quickly reassured himself that it must have been the cold night air blowing through the entrance. The next day, around noon, Sheng Shaoyou had just finished a meeting. Planning to take a nap in the private lounge behind his office, he was interrupted by a knock on the door from Chen Pingming. Sheng Shaoyou loosened his tie and responded casually, "Come in." Chen Pingming entered, noticing Sheng Shaoyou's intention to rest, and silently cursed his bad timing. Still, he had no choice but to bite the bullet and report to him. Just now, Secretary Hua from HS Group came to see Hua Yong. Sheng Shaoyou's hand paused, finding this Omega rather intriguing. "What's this? Since you couldn't get my contact information, so now you're trying to go through the people around me instead? Saying you didn't want to come home with me last night, only to play this game of hard to get behind my back?" Recalling that A-level alpha from the previous night, utterly bewitched by Hua Yong, resorting to brute force in his drunken stupor, Sheng Shaoyou couldn't help but sneer inwardly. No wonder even Shen Wenlang, who was famously averse to Omegas, had fallen for him. Hiding behind that innocent and pure-looking face, Hua Yong specialized in seduction and manipulation. He really had underestimated him. "Secretary Hua asked me to pass this on to you." Only then did Sheng Shaoyou notice the item in Chen Pingming's hands, a plain, craft paper shopping bag. When did Secretary Chen start acting as a delivery service for gifts? Chen Pingming was a beta, not sensitive to pheromones, and had been working for Sheng Shaoyou for quite some time with commendable competence. He had always been clear-headed, yet even he was easily won over by Hua Yong. As expected, even heroes can't resist the allure of beauty. Beauty truly is the downfall of nations. Startled by Sheng Shaoyou's suddenly cold tone, Chen Pingming quickly explained, "It's not a gift. Secretary Hua said he found your cufflink at ECI that day. Since he didn't have your contact information, He reached out to me to pass it along. What the heck, he just wanted to return something he found. Why didn't you say so earlier? And Omega with that expression asking an alpha for their phone number. Anyone would have thought otherwise, wouldn't they? Sensing that his explanation not only failed to appease Sheng Shaoyou but had actually darkened the atmosphere further. Tim Piming wisely found an excuse to leave the office in haste, not daring to linger a second longer. Sheng Shaoyou stared at the planecraft paper bag for a while before finally reaching out and taking it. He tipped it over, and sure enough, a cufflink fell out. His accessories were always meticulously managed by professionals. Losing one cufflink made the pairing complete, and the remaining one had probably already been discarded. Returning it like this was undoubtedly redundant. Sheng Shaoyou's expression remained cold as he noticed there was a sticky note inside the bag. His stern demeanor softened slightly, and he immediately pulled out to read. The handwriting was elegant and refined. Amar Sheng, this is the cufflink I found at HCI. I didn't have it with me yesterday, which is why I wanted to ask for your contact information to return it to you. I caused you a lot of trouble last night, and I'm truly sorry for that. Thank you for being willing to help me. I'm very grateful. Hua Yong, Sheng Shaoyou studied the note back and forth several times before finding it somewhat boring. He casually tossed the note, along with the solitary, pitiable cufflink, into the drawer of his desk and went off to take his afternoon nap.